Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with this week's guest, but as always, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, these are all companies I used as an AD. You should be using them too. They're time savers, they're money makers, and they're going to help you do your job better. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our Wednesday Wisdom guest, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys for their sponsorship of the AD Toolbox segment. You know, if you're not using a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes, your coaches, or your parents, you're really missing out. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that really connects you to everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown. Hometown continues to be a leader in education-based athletics with their solutions that include things like, well, digital ticketing, of course, but how about fee-free fundraising through School Funder, athletic website construction? The Hometown list goes on and on. Whether you're an athletic director, principal, even a head coach, Hometown is going to show you how to save time. They're going to show you how to raise money. And they're going to show you how to bring your entire community together. That's hometown.com. Hometown.com. Let's also say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just love the Huddle platform. Go to huddle.com. Join the millions of users and find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. We also want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's through the Ohio program, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others. And while they were earning their degrees, they also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Now, Wall of Fame has been helping schools bring their legacy to life for over a decade, but their team of talented writers and creators with their new content service provider is a game changer. They're going to take your history, your story, your coaches, your kids, and come up with compelling narratives that you can then post on your school's social media channel. You really got to see it to believe it. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com for more information. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every day for scheduling, rosters, results, facility management, communications. Did I mention athletic eligibility and clearance? They do all of these things and more, and they do it better and faster than the other platforms. Go to homecampus.com to get started. That's Home Campus. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Booster Hub, the #1 booster club software program. If you help your boosters with volunteer signups, you know you have volunteer changes. It's going to happen. Well, nothing falls through the cracks. Everybody stays connected on their secure system. The same thing with sponsorship sales or concession sales. Nobody misses out. Everybody knows what's going on with Booster Hub. Give your boosters the platform they need. Give them the platform they deserve. And that platform is Booster Hub. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Gipper. Go to Gipper.com to get started marketing your school's social media. That's Gipper.com. And with all our sponsors, make sure you mention the Educational AD Podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast and another segment of Wednesday Wisdom. If you've been listening to the podcast, you should recognize today's guest. We're going to be visiting with the athletic director at Pratt Community College. She was on the show a few months ago, Rachel Steinbarger. If you missed that, go back into Spotify, into our library, and check out her interview. Great background, great story, and we're excited to have her back with us today on Wednesday Wisdom. Rachel Steinbarger, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. You and I were talking before we hit the record button, and for our listeners, we're recording this on June 4th, so it's going to be very timely when you listen to it. But you had a couple of really interesting topics that you were talking about sharing. I'm going to get out of the way and just go ahead and ask, what do you have for our listeners on this segment of Wednesday Wisdom?
You know, it's not a very flashy topic that a lot of people like to talk about. But when you become an athletic director at a college or a university, there's always things that you're looking at to grow, right? Like for the school, for the college, but what are you looking at to grow for yourself? And so I'm at the tail end of finishing my doctorate in sports psychology. And I don't think enough people talk about how are you growing your professional life and your personal life together. And so I think those topics as a holistic approach are things that a lot more people need to understand that can be achievable and that you don't just have to settle.
Yeah, and again, professional development is one of those topics. I think ADs love to provide professional development for their coaches. Sometimes they don't get to do as much as they want because of cost or time, but also sometimes they forget about themselves. And so, yeah, getting your own professional development is just so critical to growing and, advancing in your career, even if you're advancing at the same place you're at, not necessarily changing jobs. It is really important.
Yes, yes, it is. And, I started my doctorate, it'll be 4 years ago in October, and it was an integrated program. So I got my third master's through it. So school has been something that has just been a part of my career, even when I was coaching. But being in an athletic director role and then taking over a program, changing a culture, still having to sacrifice all this time to work on your doctorate, because we all know, and if you don't know, I'll let you know, you write a lot of papers. There's a lot to that, and there's a lot of research. And so it's not like when you go home, like most people do, they just have time for themselves. You're now having to sacrifice time that maybe you could develop in other areas. But it's such a positive thing, I think, in the time we're in and what I'm doing my doctorate in, because I can use it real time too with the student athletes and with the coaches and the way that I lead. And I could use one of the topics with the different papers that I write. And so that's been a really cool thing for me to see in real time what works and what doesn't, and kind of what leaders like I want to be in that way too.
Now, you mentioned your doctorate and what you're working on. Obviously, there's a lot of different, disciplines and sub-disciplines that a high school, or in this case, a college athletic director could pursue. So are you in a niche yet that you can, share with our listeners?
So my career has constantly changed, right? I know the last time I was on the podcast, I got a master's because I went through cancer. So I did exercise science, nutrition, and wellness. And so then when I got on the administrative side and got out of coaching, I was like, I feel like I'm more of a counselor than I am actually an athletic director. So let's just go and get an integrated program. So my niche is sports psychology, and I have a counseling background. I finished my third master's in September of last year with counseling. So I have all the skills and the tools for that stuff. And it's been great just to be able to sit and really understand communication and nonverbal cues and things like that, especially with student athletes, where the stigma is, I don't want to talk to anybody about anything. It's been awesome to kind of break those barriers with that as well.
And again, you mentioned it, your career, you've had a couple of different stops, which is not unusual, particularly at the college level, including, and you mentioned counseling, but coaching, admissions, You've been from Florida all the way up to Great Falls, Montana, and parts in between. Um, as you've gotten into the curriculum, the coursework, the paper writing, what's something that maybe has surprised you about the subject that you're dealing with, or maybe something that you see great application with your coaches that you have there at Pratt Community College.
I think the one thing in my current, one of my current classes is understanding like case studies in the sense of there's all these tangible things, but the why to behind what's happening. And a lot of times it's unhealed trauma from when you're younger. It's something that may have happened to you that's outside of your control. And so learning the theory behind these things has been really cool for me to understand in regards to what questions I ask. So a lot of times we'll talk about injuries, for instance, right? Athletes feel like they're not seen anymore when they get injured during season. They're just kind of like pushed to the side and they don't really feel they have that support. And so I just got my dissertation topic approved, and that's literally what it is the lack of social support when you're injured during a season at the collegiate level. And what support systems do you need? What can we implement? What gaps are there in research? And the research that's been done was back in 2007. So there's not much there from now and COVID and all of those things on topics like that. And so that's really what I've seen, especially here at the community college level. It's like, a rolling thing. And with the new NILs and all of those deals, and then kids not being happy and going into the transfer portal, you see that a lot too. Well, I'm injured, so I'll just go somewhere else because somebody else will take me. And so we're not vesting in the kids. I'm a 4-year kid, right? Like I stayed at my school for 4 years. That's very unheard of nowadays.
Yeah, and I think that's again, this is the old guy getting on the soapbox. I think that's a sad development. The the pendulum swung, in my opinion, a little bit too quickly from college athletes having zero rights, if you will, and support to now they can go wherever they want to. At a moment's notice, and those ideas of, commitment and hard work. And again, I know I'm making myself sound older than I really am. That they're just, I'm not going to say it's right, wrong, good or bad, but it certainly is different, from what it used to be. I had a thought there and then it escaped when I went down this rabbit hole. The support for the athlete when they get injured. Again, you mentioned, you've walked those shoes. You were an athlete, you were a coach, and now you're researching and writing on this. The I'm going to say the typical, let's say high school head coach, even college head coach, that's not say D1 with a million assistants. There's only so much time in the day. There's only so many resources they have available to. They're not usually, talking about the coaches, trained in counseling, etc. What are some of the solutions for that hardworking coach that, again, we want to develop good citizens and be altruistic, but particularly at the college level, if you don't win, you're out the door. Where are the resources, and how does a coach balance that with coaching the team that is there? And as you brought up, I'm giving you 3 different things here. Taking care of their own wellness and mental health. How do they do it?
I think it's honestly coaches have to invest in their athletes when they come, right? Like to whatever they're doing, whether it's they're going to high school, they're going to college, you start the investment when they become a part of your program. So if you don't invest and they don't trust you, they're never going to have that resilience to come and speak to you. So you have to bridge that gap there. And it can't be text messages and phone calls to be able to invest. It's that face to face. And that's what I've pressed a lot of our coaches on here is have weekly check-ins with your athletes. Talk about everything but the sport. Really get to know them. That's what made me thrive when I was a coach. And then that's what's made me thrive as someone who's leading a department now. When these athletes come in, I don't ask them about what sport they play. I ask, what do you want to do with your life? Where do you want to go? How can I help you get there? It's not about always just being the athlete, it's about being the student too. And then when it comes to how do coaches do it, I think again, it goes back to the one-on-one meetings, but it also is create a buddy system where other student athletes are checking in on their teammates, making sure that they're okay. If they're not going to class and you know, you probably should let your head coach know. Um, Things like that, more of an accountability system. I used to call it a buddy system when I was coaching. Granted, I haven't coached for 6 years, so it probably is very old school nowadays. But also having them understand the resources that are on the campus that you're currently at as well. I think that's very valuable. And I don't think some of our coaches, at least at my current institution, are aware of all the services that we can provide to help these students through this process too, along with our athletic trainer being very transparent with the head coaches. So it's not just one entity. There's like so many facets that you can take this. I just think that people need to be more educated on what services that are provided, and the students need to know. So if they don't feel comfortable going to their head coach, but they can go to the athletic trainer and the athletic trainer can help them, that could be the bridge.
Yeah, there's no question that building those relationships and communication are crucial to everybody's mental health. I'm sure the coach feels bad that the player's not physically able to compete, and hopefully there has been discussions about that at the team level and the individual level on, okay, this is how we roll at our school. You're injured, but you're still a part of the team, and all of that. A long time ago in this interview, I asked you also, as you've been doing your research, has anything come up that was, wow, I didn't know that you can share with our listeners?
A lot of it probably had to just be with the counseling side of it, right? Because I am in an integrated program. So I got my clinical mental health counseling degree, and then I'll be a sports psychologist next year, like a doctor of sports psychology. And I think the biggest thing that everyone assumes that you're aware of, but you're not, is when you're triggered or you have a trauma that happens, your body shows that first before your mind connects. So it's that fight or flight. And so when we're dealing with student athletes who come from a rough background or a single parent household or first generation or whatever it is, and yelling is something that they're triggered by, their trauma response inside, you can see them physically shake or get anxiety. Coaches are like, I don't understand what's not getting through to this person. And it's like, hold on a second, put yourself in their shoes. Like that's why it's so important to understand investment, and you can't coach every kid the same. But I think that was the biggest epiphany for me, especially as an adult who's been through things. We all have stuff, right? Like people say that all the time, you all have stuff. But if you think back and you look back at different avenues, or if you're getting yelled at as an adult, why is my body doing this? What is it? And then learning, oh my gosh, that is a trauma response, or that is my body's way of saying, hey, this is not okay. Like your gut, your intuition, all of those things. That's really something that I've kind of honed in on, and I have so much more value in than I did in the past.
Again, a lot of things to unpack there. It was all good stuff. You talk about not coaching kids the same way. I learned that eventually. I had a quarterback. He was with us as a freshman, didn't play a lot, but then he started for the next 3 years. Great kid, went on to play college ball. And I was, as a football coach, I was very high volume and, come on, we're going to do this. And, I would get literally in his face. I don't think I ever grabbed his face mask, but he thrived on that. He just loved it. All right, coach, let's go do it. When he graduated, the kid that took over for him, probably a better athlete, definitely bigger. But when I did that same thing with him that first summer as a junior in 7-on-7, he just wilted. And I literally had to go, okay, Dan, this is what I want you to do. And, I've got veins bursting on my forehead and everything, but that's how I had to coach him, and it worked great for him. And eventually I calmed down, I guess. Here's my question for you. it annoys me more than it should. And again, I'm not minimizing the importance of mental health and, promoting relationships and coaching in a positive way. I would tell our kids, don't listen to my volume. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm coaching you on technique. I'm giving you assignment. I'm not mad at you. It's just coming out loud. But how do we coach kids to be, and this isn't macho thing, but how do we coach them to be tough? I know a lot of people say resilient. I don't like that word. How do we teach them to be tougher? Because sports is tough. Life is tough. It's not to be mean to them. It's to help them develop, call it resilience or grit or something else. I just use that old school word tough. How do we coach them to be tough while also acknowledging, okay, everybody, as you said, we've all got stuff. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? Do you understand? Okay.
I do. I think that's a question that I get on a daily basis. Like, how can I get this kid to do what I'm asking them to do? And I think it goes back to your voice can't always be heard. Bring in people who may have gone through the same thing, who've been through your program, who understand what you're trying to do. Utilize the resources that you've already created for yourself. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel every single time you have a new student athlete come in. Allow the alumni to come back and talk about, hey, I remember when coach did this. Wasn't that crazy? I remember when coach did this. Oh my gosh. But now in life, I'm so much more prepared because we had to run at 2 o'clock in the morning when we got back and lost. Like, you know what I mean? I jokingly say that to these coaches, but if I went back to my alma mater and spoke to those kids that are currently there, those young, individuals, and how hard it was for us, we were so successful, but I'm so much more prepared in life because of how hard it was and because there was so much accountability. And I think sometimes coaches are afraid of accountability because athletes now are like, well, I don't want to do that. I want a mental health day. And I've had coaches come in and say, they're asking for a mental health day. I'm like, well, they signed a contract saying this is what they were going to do. So they need to come to you and speak to you in person and say why. And so that's really what it comes down to is more face to face. It's so easy to hide behind the screen and say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do half the things that we have to do, but we do it because it's what we love to do. There's a big difference. It's the terminology that I say to a lot of the athletes that come in here and they complain about a coach. Well, you get to do this. You don't have to. There's a difference, right? Just the terminology there. You change the self-talk, I think, is so negative nowadays. And so when we start to use more positive self-talk, that's what teaches us toughness. It's not getting in someone's face and screaming and making you go run and flip tires and do all those things,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I agree 100% with everything you said. I think the key thing I took out of that was, hey, we are educators, we are teachers first as part of being coaches and finding the right way, the best way to get our message across, whatever that is. That's our job as a coach. I'm going to ask you a question, but I'm going to build into it. There's a saying that the best place to coach is an orphanage because the parents are not involved. Now, I know at the college level, I hope you don't have parent issues. High school, it used to be when I first got into coaching, I mean, parents were involved. It took 40 years for them to get involved, but they're definitely involved now. And rather than saying, you guys stay in your lane, we got this, coaches and ADs at the high school level have begun to, and I think the smart ones are, embracing what we call partnering with parents. We're not giving them the keys to the car, but they're along for the ride, so let's try to make it a positive ride. Frequently, I'll speak to parent groups at high schools. The coaches, the AD will have me come in and talk to the coaches for an hour, and then have dinner, and then they have the parents come in, and I'll talk to them. And parents nowadays, when I was in high school 100 years ago, if you would have asked, parents, how many of you, played sports when you were in high school? Almost all the hands would go up. When you ask that question now, it's a lot less. And they didn't go through those trials that you and I went through as athletes, and the hard work and falling down and having the coach help us get up and challenging us. They don't get it, and parents too frequently they want to remove any chance of failure from their own child's path, not understanding that's how we get better. So here's my question, from the psychological counseling, resiliency approach. What are some tools that coaches and ADs can use to get parents to understand, hey, that's what your kid needs. They need that challenge, not the yelling, but they need that challenge.
I think it goes back to if it's the right fit or not. So when you're recruiting student athletes, I have asked our coaches to allow me to be a part of it because I want the parents to be able to shake my hand and say, hey, I met the athletic director. Hey, they're 100% on board behind the head coach. So they know that there is a full support here in what the head coach's decision is. And if there's something wrong, I'm going to step in and say something. But I think it goes back to you're recruiting the student athlete. Yes, you're recruiting the parents, but the student athlete's playing for you. So I've always personally struggled when I'm asking questions to a potential student athlete coming in and then the parents responding. And I will literally look at the parent and say, are you going to play for CJ or is your daughter going to? And they're like, well, no, my daughter is. Okay, well, allow her to speak on what she wants for her future because that's what she's going to have to do when you're not here every day. And so I do that during the recruiting process, and parents, some are abrasive, right? They're like, well, we don't want to come here. Well, that's fine, but this is the culture that we've created here. So you're going to have to find that elsewhere. But when it comes to the psychological aspect, I think it starts in the recruiting process. 100% full transparency. This is how we are. This is what we do. And then having them come through the process. So if their student athlete is having issues on campus, whether they're not going to class, there are all these things, making sure A, they sign all the forms, right, to be able to speak to the parent, but B, having the parent also teach them that this is a life skill. So we see that a lot at the community college level, right? Parents are like, well, my daughter's doing this. I've actually had to be on the phone with parents and say, why don't you come to a practice and watch your daughter or son and see how they're doing practice? Because they're calling you, telling you they're not playing, but they're working so hard in practice. They're showing up 15 minutes late. They're taking extra long water breaks. They're not working hard, these things. And it's like, then when you say that, they're like, well, I don't have time to come down there. Well, then don't ask. Like that's just, you have to be very bold in that sense, especially in the world we live in today, because I call them snowplow parents. And then I call it the microwave effect. We want instant gratification, but we don't want to work hard to get there. And so if we can start to instill that with holding them accountable from the jump, having them sign contracts, having them do things that fit the program, if you're not a fit, you're going to weed yourself out anyways. So that's really what it comes down to. Psychologically, it's either you get in the boat and you row together or you don't. And that's what I say. You can't put gum in holes of a boat and think it's going to work, right? Like you have to literally be there together, doing it together. And if this is not the family feel you want, this is not the place for you. And I'm fully transparent with that, with coaches, with athletes. I don't think it's so much a psychological thing. I think people just want excuses to have what I have. They want to be an AD, but they don't want to work hard to get there, right? And so it's like learning the steps it takes to get there.
Again, great stuff. I was deep into your discussion there, and I lost my question. As you look at your own coaching staff, and again, we don't want you to name names or anything like that, or sports, but do you have a coach that has shown a skill at that particular facet of, communicating with kids, communicating with parents? I'm going to guess all your coaches, of course, but is there a particular tool or technique that they use that you can share with our listeners at this point? Get kind of an extra tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, one in particular. He has been around for quite some time and he's very involved in the community. And so he uses a lot of his community outreach to involve the parents and the families. And so that's what he utilizes as like the investment part of it with the parents for them to see how great their student athletes being taken care of. I've never seen it done in a way that is where we invite parents to do community engagement. Um, but in this town that we live in, that's something that I've seen that really works, and that's how he bridges the gap and builds those relationships. So when he is making a decision for his student athletes, the parents aren't questioning him because they see how he treats them out in the community in front of everyone as well. And that is something that I never even thought about in my career myself. Hey, invite parents to do this. I always just think of fundraising, right? Like, I never looked at it from a community engagement aspect where you're not even asking for money, you're just asking for time. And so I think that is such a missed piece, a misstep that I had in my career that if I would go back, I think I would have touched more parents and student athletes had I done it that way and looked at it from that perspective.
Yeah, great advice. I love that. Rachel, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit more, or just add you to their network, what's the best way that they can do that?
They can go to gobeaversports.com, which is our website. It has my email, it has my office phone, and then I'm very well connected on LinkedIn. I respond very well. That's actually how you and I think, connected. And so that is another platform that I really like to use, just to keep things professional and grow the network so people can see who I'm connected with, and then we can build the tree and tools that way.
Well, I really appreciate you coming back on the podcast to share. Great episode, and all the best as you continue with your own professional development and the professional development of the coaches there at Pratt Community College.
Thank you so much.
For our listeners, we want to say thanks to you and remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of every interview to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do Wednesday Wisdom just about every week and just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So please come back and join us again on the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Hey, before we go, of course, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Let's say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com to get started. Hometown, you'll find them at hometown.com. Huddle, of course, Huddle.com. Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Check them out. Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards, sidelineinteractive.com. Athletic Surveys, you'll find them at athleticsurveys.com. Booster Hub, find them at boosterhub.com. Home Campus, homecampus.com. And Vital Signs Wall of Fame and Beacon Creative, it's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Thanks again for listening. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.